Okay, let's go ahead and call to order the July 18th Board of Trustees special meeting, the time being 6:32 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Certainly. Trustee Gator, here. Trustee Daly. Trustee Mason,
Here.
Trustee Teets,
Here.
Trustee Wiegand,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Here.
Mayor Shosse. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Are there any proposed amendments to this evening's agenda? Are there any conflicts of interest on the agenda items this evening? Okay. Public comment. We'll now proceed to item B1, public comment. Individuals wishing to provide public comment on non-agenda items, please sign in on the sheet at the table behind you and state your name and address for the record. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to provide public comment.
Lisa Cholet, 7424 Homestretch Drive. I wrote down my comments tonight. So good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and trustees. Here tonight to share my concerns regarding some observations I've made over the last few weeks in Wellington. While I've not been attending trustee meetings in person as often, I have continued to participate online as an observer. Additionally, I've taken the opportunity to watch other meetings in town, such as the Pros Board and the Finance Committee. As a planning commissioner, I'm obviously aware of what is happening in those meetings. I've made a concerted effort since early October 2021 to be an informed and involved citizen. My comments tonight are based on my participation in the town of Wellington as an observer, a planning commissioner, a two-time water and sewer roundtable member, and as a taxpayer. The tone, comments, and conduct of some of the Finance Committee members during the June meeting, the comments made during board reports last week, I believe, and the letter issued by a former Finance Committee member have compelled me to stand here today and ask, what the heck is going on? In light of the near implosion, as Fire Board member Pearson described it, of the operations side of the fire department, I fear that it is the road we are on in this town if we're not careful. It is no secret that the town of Wellington has been working hard to right the ship after the many issues of the past. As trustees, your job is to set the policy and the vision of this town. As our government, it is your job to represent each of us through the policy and vision. It is not your job to interfere with operations, subtly or overtly attack town staff, or act in place of any one of the valuable staff members we have managed to keep. I was appalled at the behavior towards staff at the Finance Committee meeting last month. I was dismayed at the subtle and not so subtle criticisms of our town administrator during the last board meeting, which I think it was that one. I'm thoroughly disgusted at the sharing of information by former employees with citizens participating in our Finance Committee. Furthermore, I find it very disturbing that sunshine laws were violated by that committee, that accusations were hurled towards our town administrator by two formal, disgruntled, and incapable finance managers, and that it would appear it was condoned and perhaps aided by one or more trustees. We are fortunate to have the staff, the town staff, and specifically Mrs. Garcia, who has stuck with us despite public shaming of them by this board and the previous board, of which some of you were a part of. In that vein, I would like to point out what I believe to be important. Our town org chart goes something like this: citizens, you all as board of trustees, town administrator, department heads, and so on. If this is in fact the case, which I believe it is, then I would like for you to each think about this. Department heads are accountable to the town administrator, who is accountable to this board, who is accountable to us, the citizens and taxpayers of this town. We trust you to do your job properly as you hold yourselves out to be capable of what you ran for election. We do not supposed to know or understand the minute details of your job.
I request to give the speaker my time.
Approved.
In the same vein, the town administrator hires the public works director and trusts that he can do the job he held himself out to do. This would be the same for the planning director and the finance director and so on. Our public works director is an engineer. He makes decisions every day using his specialized skills. If he makes errors, it would be unrealistic to expect the town administrator to catch it right away because she is not an engineer. If our planning director administratively approves something and is in error, do we expect the town administrator to catch this right away as well? She's not an urban planner. If the finance director fails to properly code GL transactions, do we expect the town administrator to knock on their door and say, hey, you did that wrong? No, because she's not an accountant. If we are expecting a public administration specialist to also have degrees in engineering, urban planning, and accounting, then we are living in a pipe dream. As in all business, there is a hierarchy and people are hired in a mid-level or department lead position with an expectation that they can perform their specialized and often degree-required job. We cannot reasonably expect our town administrator to be qualified to do all of those jobs, and there simply isn't enough time in the day to do her job, at one point, the clerk job, and micromanage every employee. This would seem to be common sense, which leaves me to scratch my head. Why on earth are we so hostile towards those who try so hard to run this town on a day-to-day basis? People make a conscious choice to work in Wellington. Every position requires people to accept less pay typically, work harder and longer, and wear multiple hats. I'm grateful for our staff, even those who may have been in over their heads and moved on. I implore you, support our staff, support Mrs. Garcia, help them find solutions to make our town better and more efficient. Do not continue to target them. This is unfair. It's not right. And they do a wonderful, wonderful job. And to side with one staff member over someone who's been entrusted and has done a wonderful job helping this town get back on its feet, I'm embarrassed. And I'm really, really sad because I think Wellington is better than this. I do not want to see this town go backwards. Thank you.
Dawn Peacock. There's been a lot of clutching of pearls lately when it comes to the finance department. You know what they say, when the cat's away, the mice will play. And Nick, the president of the finance committee, I think that's his title, was away and had appointed Dominic acting president while he was gone. And boy, was that an interesting choice after Don's unprofessional outburst in the prior meeting. Don contacted Ms. Garcia on July 10th and updated the committee via email that in my capacity as acting president for the next meeting, I told Patti that I do not want to review any in-progress financial statements for 2023. And then, of course, he resigned immediately after the meeting because Daddy Nick would probably have had words for him for abuse of power and kicked him out anyway. Here's the thing, there are problems. There have been problems all the way back to Judy and before. And in the 90-page diatribe that Dom released with lots of old receipts from years ago that were paid under Judy and complaints from Charity about spending taxpayers' money, I'm wondering why board members from that time didn't question the $100 and $200 phone stipends to Judy, or the nearly $900 to Slurp for a party, or $36,000 in furniture for the Harrison House when American Furniture Warehouse has office furniture and would have been half that. Dom included complaints about the purchasing policy, yet in April 13th, 2021 trustee meeting, Judy presented the purchasing policy that spells out the P-cards, and according to the April 27, 2021 trustee meeting packet, Judy stated when P-cards are issued to staff, they sign a P-card agreement. Staff are required to allocate purchases to correct funds and upload receipts to the P-card system. The finance team also reviews the purchases to make sure that they're allocated appropriately. Trustee Gator commented that he did not have issues with thresholds in that meeting. On June 14th, 2022, Resolution 26, 2022 was presented, bringing Charity on board. It stated that Trustee Gator participated in that process and she was recommended by Trustee Gator, and yet there are GL errors all over the place in the books that have since been found and are being corrected. Also earlier in the year, Gator moved to approve selection of the auditor, who was approved with no objection and is now complaining about not having the audits. Sorry, John, but Trustee Gator, you want it both ways. You want to complain about the firm and point fingers at the staff while you're the person that voted for them. In multiple instances, Charity stated that cash was missing and that she thinks Ms. Garcia is the only other person with a key. The wording used was very insinuating, and as often as Trustee Gator jumps to the defense of other trustees when accusations are thrown about, I hope he will come to the aid of Ms. Garcia in this instance rather than adding additional accusations. You'll also hear complaints about Ms. Garcia and that she's the reason why Judy and others quit their positions. And I can personally tell you that I have heard an equal number, if not more, complaints stating that certain members of the board, the reason why they choose to leave. This is all tit for tat. Stop the bullying and the bashing. There's work to be done. We're finally finding the errors and cleaning them up.
Any further public comment? Next, we'll proceed to action items.
Mayor Pro Tem, please note trustee Daly joined the meeting virtually at 6:34.
Thank you. Will the clerk please read the title of the first action item?
Item C1, resolution number 24-2023, Baker Tilly US LLP engagement letter to provide financial management services to the town of Wellington.
Ms. Patti Garcia, Town Administrator, will present this item. Ms. Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Trustees. Patti Garcia, Town Administrator. You have before you tonight Resolution number 24-2023, which is to consider a letter of engagement with Baker Tilly for financial management services. Town staff share the same mission of the Board of Trustees, Finance Committee, and Wellington residents. Our goal is to create financial transparency and increase operational efficiency. We are committed to improving the organization's financial health and believe this is the proper step to achieve our goal with the support of a third party. Tonight, I will be reviewing the following: the request for qualifications, duration of contract, and cost of services. First, I will speak to the request for qualifications, which aligns with the town's purchasing policy. A request for qualifications was published for financial management services, and the town received 3 responses. 2 finalists were interviewed on June 25th by an interview committee made up of Trustee Brian Mason, Trustee John Gator, Nick Redivad, representing the Finance Committee, Bob Gowing, Public Works Director, Cody Bird, Planning Director, Kelly Hodeling, Deputy Town Administrator, and myself. The interview committee recommended the appointment of Baker Tilly, being represented by Don Rhodes, to provide financial management services to the town. Mr. Rhodes has more than 29 years of public sector experience, including serving as a finance director for the City of Monterey and the chief financial officer for the City of Beverly Hills. He is experienced in operational and capital budgeting, strategic financial planning, accounting and financial reporting, capital improvement planning, analysis and strategies related to unfunded liabilities, as well as staff development and team building. Mr. Rhodes received his Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and Accounting from California State University and received his Master of Liberal Arts from Harvard University. The initial contract is for 6 months, and then service needs will be reassessed to determine the needs moving forward with an opportunity for a contract extension. If this item is approved by the Board of Trustees tonight, staff has scheduled a contract review and evaluation of effectiveness of services at the December 19, 2023 work session. The expense estimate for these services in 2023 is approximately $106,575. The town's leadership team is supportive of bringing Baker Tilly on board to assess policies, procedures, and to get Wellington on a strong financial path moving forward, and will provide funds from their department budgets to cover the expense for 2023. The majority of the funds are coming from salary savings, projects being under budget or deferred, and professional fees. Ongoing professional service expenses for Baker Tilly will be built into the 2024 budget. The breakdown of the specific line items and general ledger codes for the funds being used in 2023 are in your packet. I'd like to note that the library's contribution will be pulled from shelving and furnishing and professional development. As your town administrator, I remain steadfast in my goal to have our processes and policies looked at from an outside view. I'm committed to creating process improvements in our finance department. Bringing in Mr. Rhodes will help us lay a solid foundation for the future of Wellington, so it can be prepared to solicit candidates in the future to fill the role of the finance director and treasurer. Mr. Rhodes is here and is ready to speak if you would like him to approach.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the board regarding the contents of the packet or for Mr. Baker this evening?
I do.
Go ahead.
So a couple of questions that I have is, I know we have a really broad scope of work, and I know the initial in the engagement letter, the thought was that it would take somewhere between 25 to 35 hours a week for the first, I think you guys said 8 weeks. Yeah, for an estimate 8 weeks. And then from there, it would reduce down to 25 hours, but the amount we've budgeted is only the 25-hour level. And so within the scope of work, I'm just trying to understand realistically, how much of that can you accomplish within the 25 hours? If you have any ideas on that.
You want to speak?
Good evening. I'm happy to be here, and that for that question, what I would like to do is start with kind of the fundamentals. Because there are some things that we need to get squared away kind of first. So for instance, I'd like to become familiar with the general ledger and the city's financial system. And where did fund balance end up at the end of last year? Where is the audit in the process? And then we've got the budget process going on right now. And so that'd be another thing that I would jump into. So I would say in the first 6 months for that 25 to 35 hours, we would focus on really making sure the general ledger is rock solid and that our financial reporting is really reliable. I'm not saying that it isn't. I haven't put a ton of time into what the issues are just yet. Until we see if the contract is approved. But I would want to make sure the financial reporting was really solid. And then of course the budget has to get done. And so that process has already started as I understand it. And so I would want to pick up on that. Other things that are in the tasks, if there are any operational issues within the finance department right now, just things that aren't getting done or aren't getting done timely. Again, I'm not saying there are, but things like that we'd want to focus on right at the beginning. Other areas, if there isn't time in the first 6-month contract, it might get pushed towards the end of the 6 months or into the next, into any extension if there is any.
Excellent. And I think that the reporting, you hit on that, because I think if you don't have good solid reporting, you really can't do a budget because you don't actually know what you're working with. What would that look like in terms of process of figuring out where, and I think that, staff has brought up there were errors from the last finance director. So they've fixed some of those errors. There are still errors that are being fixed. How would you go about trying to get to the cause, right? So we don't continue creating errors.
Sure. And there's where I feel like I might have a little bit of advantage because just a little bit more on my background. I kind of came up through the accounting side of the municipal finance business. I started out, I'm in a national CPA firm now. That's how I started my career. I am a CPA, and I started by auditing cities and special districts and school districts and things like that. So I gained a good understanding of governmental accounting background from there. So I think having that accounting background connection, and it sounds kind of nerdy probably, but I would just do a deep dive on the general ledger and make sure that the numbers that are there are rock solid, because everything has to tie to something. That's the neat thing about finance. That's the neat thing about balance sheets, is they have to balance, and every number on there, there's documentation for it. If you say there's this much cash, well, where's the bank statements and the bank reconciliations at a certain date to get to that point? Same with fixed assets, same with accounts payable. I mean, there's documentation. The auditors go through this, so I'm really interested in meeting with the auditors and see what they've found. But that would be the beginning point, is just make sure that the general ledger is rock solid, and then get familiar with the financial accounting system to make sure that the financial reports that are coming from it tie back to the general ledger. Numbers tying and if you see a budget report, if you see a financial report, you see an audit report, the numbers should all tie. They should all be connected somehow. A budget is different from an audited financial statement, because an audited financial statement looks at the past. The budget is predicting to the future, but they still have ties. I mean, that fund balance, that's a point where they need to come together, or you're not looking at the right numbers. So that's where I would start with just really the debits and the credits and the balance sheet and the income statement. Start with there, but then quickly that would need to fold into, okay, what did we learn from there? Now we've got a budget to do. You start with the beginning fund balance, you see what the revenue estimates look like, and then you go from there. Certainly.
Since we have Trustee Daly on the line, does she have any comments or questions?
I don't at this time. Thank you. I think the packet was put together very well, and all the line items for the costs is much appreciated and answered all the questions.
Sorry.
Were you able to hear me?
And good, the packet was very thorough.
Yes, hello. So I had the pleasure of sitting in on the Finance Committee's meeting last night to listen to some comments, questions, concerns, additional information that I wanted to bring back here, because I cannot answer the questions that they were asking. So I said I would bring them back. One thing that was brought up from the meeting is if we as trustees can look at a not to exceed on the budgeted item. So say we start hitting 250,000 in the 6 months, when does it come back to us? Is there an amount that we can look at to say, okay, we need to evaluate this? Or so that was one thing brought up in the finance meeting last night. The other one, which I thought was actually a great idea, is if we do plan on this engagement lasting the 12 to 18 months that was projected possibly, if there is a possibility to do a 1-year lock-in on your hourly rates. So therefore, if you guys change your rates as of January 1, is there a possibility to, if we're going to be entering into this agreement long-term, the 12 to 18 month mark, there is a big difference between the 175 negotiated compared to the actual rate after that 8 weeks. Is there a possibility to look at a contract that says for 1 year, this is going to be the amount that we charge you for your services, and then readdress there if we need to move forward from the 12 months to the 18-month period? Another question was will you be looking at and evaluating management letters from previous year's audits to verify that policies and procedures that were implemented and put into place are continuing to be implemented and put into place? That was a question that was brought up last night. And then internal control measures. Will you be walking through internal control measures to verify that items are being done the way that our ordinance or laws state they are to be done in our town? So that was the questions that were brought up. Like I said, I can't answer them. So I figured this would be a perfect opportunity to hear some information on that. My other thing was, and this is more of an item for me, I would like to see a cash handling policy drafted. If we can have that professionally completed, accomplished, that would be wonderful. It is my knowledge and understanding now that we do not have a cash handling policy. So having that, I feel, will help alleviate some of the conflicts and concerns that we've seen come up from some of the finance committee members' questions from the meeting last night. Other than that, I am very excited to get to see this and experience this firsthand and be a part of a board that put something in place that helped protect the town moving forward. I think that's one of the most important things, is making sure that we have appropriate procedures. We aren't always going to be sitting on this board in 20, 30 years. So having something appropriately set up and addressing it on a regular basis, I think will be a really good thing for our community.
Okay, I can address some of those here if you like. The management letter from the auditors. Yes, I will be very interested. That'll be actually one of the first things I would do to get an update from the auditors as to where we are with the ongoing audits. And that included in that would be the management letters, because that's where they share with the town. What did they find? Things that weren't big enough to like squash the audit. They didn't have to give an adverse opinion, but there might have been a deficiency or something that they noted that they thought was important enough they should bring it up. So that's one of the first things I would look at, because that would give us some clue as to, is there areas, operational areas that we might need to look at. And that speaks to the internal control as well, because auditors also provide not only a management letter, but also any kind of internal control weaknesses they found. And so if there are any like that, then that would be another thing that we would focus on, certainly. Cash handling is, yeah, we can certainly look at that. Whether that would be in the first couple of months when I'm trying to get the general ledger squared away to the extent that it may be, again, I don't know, but working with the general ledger and the financial reporting and the budget. So it may not be in the first couple of months, but cash handling, part of the tasks are reviewing the town's financial policies and procedures, and update as necessary. I would see cash handling as one of those policies and procedures. So we would certainly make sure that that was included there. And then finally, as far as the hourly rate issue goes, my understanding is that we've got, it's a 6-month contract to begin with, right? And so there would be that opportunity at 6 months to look at things again. As far as locking in an hourly rate for a longer period of time, that's something I would have to talk to our contract folks about, but that I'd certainly be willing to do that. But the initial commitment is just the 6 months. Anything you want to add to that?
Sure. And so there was a question about the not to exceed. And what I proposed last night to the finance committee was that we would watch what the billing looks like, because we've never done this before. So we're making an estimate. So if we hit, November and it looks like we're at the $106,000 mark or getting close to, and I need to report out to you all, I need to come up with some additional funds to cover that through the rest of the year, because I've committed for us as town staff to cover those expenses through 2023. So we will keep you updated with regular reports on, what the status is as far as billing and projects that are being completed and things like that. I think it's important to keep the trustees involved and up to speed on that.
If I could just add one other point that maybe might provide some comfort. Most of my career was the finance director or CFO of a city. The last 5 years, I've been working with Baker Tilly, or the company that Baker Tilly purchased as well. In this kind of capacity. Brighton, Colorado was one of the first clients that I had after I left Beverly Hills. And they were in a similar circumstance where their finance director and assistant finance director had left all at once. And so they needed somebody to come in and help kind of steady the ship and get the budget done and things like that. That's the kind of role I've been playing. I will say mostly in California, because that's where my background was. And so that's where most of my clients came from. But municipal finance is kind of municipal finance with some differences state to state. So I've gotten to where I put the time in that I need to do to get the tasks done that we've agreed to. They're the important things to do. I'm not going to hang around and just kind of run up hours and things like that. So if that helps any, I work on the tasks that we have laid out, but it's not, I do try to keep the hours down to the extent possible.
Perfect. Thank you so very much.
Okay. I'd like to acknowledge one of the first questions that you mentioned was about policy about thresholds. The finance committee had questions about that. I think that would be very appropriate for the board discussion in our budget retreat. I think that would be something that would be appropriate for us to discuss as a team and decide once we're all together. So great suggestion. And I love the idea of sticking to reviewing policy and not diving into operational oversight. Trustee Wiegand.
No further questions. I think they were good questions and good answers. Appreciation.
Trustee Mason.
Yeah, Mr. Rhodes, thank you for coming down. Trustee Teets, actually, her and I had chatted earlier. So one of the specifically regarding the cash handling policy and understanding that you might have an opportunity to review that after some of the other priorities that we've got coming up. Certainly the budget and audits are of the utmost concern. So yeah, I very much look forward to having you get started. So.
Mayor Pro Tem, I believe Trustee Daly.
Oh,
Her
you wanna
mic
give
issue
another
may have
roll?
been.
Okay,
Yes.
Hi, I'm just testing my audio. Can you guys hear me now?
you're good.
Great. Thanks. My comments earlier were that the packet was very thorough. I appreciate all the line items breakdown. So I don't have any questions. I thought it was very well presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Daly. Okay, are there any comments from the public on this agenda item? Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I had a question real quickly. So on the idea of reporting back, I appreciate that. I don't want to hamstring Baker Tilly and being able to get stuff done. What I'd like to propose, I think Ms. Garcia said to the finance committee, potentially they could come up with another $10,000 to $13,000 out of the budget elsewhere. Is maybe just set the stipulation that if it looks like we're going to hit over 120,000 for the year, at that point, we'd ask Ms. Garcia to report back to us as a board.
For the 2023 budget year?
Yes, for the 2023 budget year. So basically, if it's going to go over 120,000, so that gives, because I honestly think it's going to take a little bit more than 25 hours in the beginning. And I don't want them to feel like I don't want to drag it out. I know Trustee Mason mentioned we need to get to budget. Budget is pointless without good numbers. And so we want him to be able to dig into that. So I don't want to be like, oh, well, don't come spend hours. So that gives us a little bit of room where if that needs to be expanded, Ms. Garcia can find it on her own. But if it now gets to the point where we're past 120,000, then bring that back to us so we can have a further discussion. Is that something the board's comfortable with?
If it makes it go faster, absolutely.
Does that work for you?
Yes, it does. Thank you for the recommendation.
Do we need to make an adjustment to that then?
I guess that's a question. I don't.
I think we can
It's just an
reflect it in the minutes.
instruction. Okay, so let's make sure that's reflected in the minutes. That's understood that if it's going to go over. I didn't see anything on terms and contract. Is that going to be done separately after the fact, the 6 months? How does that work?
What I would recommend, Trustee Gator, is a motion to approve the resolution with your amendment clarifying the direction of staff.
Perfect. I can do that. So I'd like to move that we approve resolution number 24-2023 Baker Tilly US LLP engagement letter to provide financial management services to the town of Wellington with the stipulation that if the contract is trending over $120,000 for the 2023 budget year, that staff will bring that back to the Board of Trustees for further discussion.
I second.
Roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. Are there any final comments or direction from members of the board?
For my final comments, so thank you, Mr. Road, for coming down, and I appreciate that your focus is really going to be on making sure we have solid numbers to start with. And that was one of the concerns that was brought up in Finance Committee, and that's been my concern, because if you don't have good data going into budget and other things, it's kind of just not, so it's good to hear that you're going to focus on making sure that we've got good information, because I'd rather we have a budget that maybe is not as fancy, it's not as exciting and entertaining as it could be, but it's got good solid numbers behind it, then I have a really fancy looking budget, but we don't know the numbers. So I really appreciated you giving clarity to where your focus would be. And I think that's what we need. So I appreciate that. And those are my final comments.
Any other final comments? Okay, Ms. Garcia, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention and for having the courage to ask the board for professional help to provide additional oversight for the financial transparency of the community. With that being said, and hearing no further comments, will the clerk please take the roll call?
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Teets,
Yes.
trustee Daly,
Yes.
trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Yes,
Thank you.
excellent. Okay, will the clerk please read the title of the second action item?
Resolution number 25-2023, appointment of town treasurer.
Ms. Garcia will also present this action item. Ms. Garcia.
Okay, with the approval of the engagement letter with Baker Tilly, resolution 25-2023 is to appoint Baker Tilly, represented by Don Rhodes, as the town treasurer. Simple as that.
I make a
I appreciate your gumption there. Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Are there any questions or comments from members of the board? We'll start with trustee Daly. Okay, we'll come back to trustee Daly if she has additional comments. Go ahead, trustee Teets.
for a motion.
Oh, comments.
Oh, no.
Comments or questions? Trustee Gator,
Comments.
trustee Wiegand. Trustee Mason. Okay, no comments from myself. Great. Are there any comments from the public on this agenda item? Great. Do I hear a motion on this item?
I make a motion to approve resolution number 25-2023, a resolution to the appointment town treasurer.
I would second it.
Excellent. Are there any final comments or direction from the board on this item? Hearing no further comments, will the clerk please call the roll?
Certainly, it appears we've lost trustee Daly. Trustee Teets,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Mason,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Yes.
Thank you.
For clarification of the record, will that be 7:07 in the minutes for trustee Daly?
It'll be 7:05.
Thank you. Okay. Will the clerk please read the title of the third action item, please?
Reconsideration of resolution number 23-2023, a resolution of the town of Wellington, Colorado, amending expenditures for the fiscal year 2022 budget.
Great. Ms. Garcia will also present on this item.
Finally, before you have a reconsideration of Resolution 23-2023, which failed at the last meeting with a tie vote. Trustees Mason, Daly, and Mayor Pro Tem had voted for the resolution, and trustees Wiegand, Teets, and Gator voted against the resolution. A motion to reconsider must be heard by a board member who voted on the prevailing side, which would be a trustee who voted against resolution number 23-2023. If the motion to reconsider passes, staff is requesting that an additional motion be made to continue resolution number 23-2023 to the July 25th, 2023 Board of Trustee meeting so that the updated financial information can be included in the packet. So there's two motions. Hopefully.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Are there any questions or comments from members of the board? Okay. Any comments from the public on this agenda item? Do I hear a motion? Let's see. We need a motion to bring it back and a motion to postpone, a motion to bring it back and.
So the
postpone.
only motion we're looking for right now is a motion to reconsider the resolution 23-2023. A motion to reconsider would not allow us to make this payment to North Pooter Irrigation Company in the future.
I'd like to make a motion to reconsider resolution number 20.
You can, it
Mayor
has to be
Oh,
someone that had
prevailing.
voted against it. So it would need to come from trustees Wiegand, Teets, or Gator.
We're not going to pay the water bill?
So a motion to reconsider is in order when there's been new information brought to light to cause me to reconsider my vote. No new information has been provided. North Pooter has given us the option to pay the bill in portions so that staff can absolutely pay tomorrow the budgeted amounts and bring back a different resolution. But at this time, there's been no new information presented to me to cause me to reconsider my vote.
Even though we just put professionals on board to get the finances lined out?
That's not new information relevant to this specific resolution.
I think the bigger point that staff is trying to make is that we need a motion to reconsider so that we can table this vote for the next July meeting so that we can have that information brought to us. If we do not have this tonight, I think we're being derelict in our duties.
Paying our water bill. I mean, we expect our citizens to pay their bill when it arrives, regardless of what the meter has read. We'll go out there and we'll double check it, but we still demand payment within 30, 60, 90, or 120 days. Why wouldn't we be subject to the same on our own water bill?
So I'd like to point out that we received this bill in December of 2022, and this was brought to our attention last week. So that was already 8 months. I had requested ahead of time that information be provided. That information was not provided. I had made a motion to table this, which is always in order because it is a sub-motion that was declined. And so the board took a vote. At this point, I have not received new information still that would cause me to reconsider my vote. Staff has the ability to pay up to the $2 million that's budgeted right now. North Pooter has given us the permission to be able to make a partial payment. There is options to bring back a different resolution. The other concern that I have is this resolution does not speak to where we are pulling money out. It simply says we're going to spend more. It doesn't say we're reducing expenses somewhere else and increasing them here. It just simply says we're straight increasing. So at this point, no, I'm not willing to reconsider because I've not been provided the information I requested over a week ago.
So if I may, I understand the comprehensive of derelict of duty. I do understand that. But the generalized idea of this is at our last meeting, it was specifically requested and we were told it would come to us was a listing of where we are pulling all of these additional funds from. If it's just coming from, oh, we're going to pull from fund balance, there goes another $600,000. And we're just going to pull it from fund balance, but we have no responsibility to say, we need to know where this money is coming from before we vote to approve something blindly. That I feel that was the question and concern this last week at our meeting. We were informed that those totals would come back to us on where we were pulling funds from, making sure that we weren't pulling them from a required or needed CIP projects, canceling out, fixing some area of road here in town. It was more an understanding. Yes, we do get the bill needs paid, but the motion to reconsider is based on new information that is brought to us, and that information was not brought to us. We can pay the approved 2 million. I think it's just a little over $2 million. That leaves a $600,000 deficit that needs to be paid. That's not saying that we can't have that motion come to us to allocate the additional $600,000 this next go round when we understand where we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. So, and that's responsible spending, is knowing that we're not grasping funds out of the air from different accounts. I'm saying, yes, we need to pay the bill, but we still have to have an understanding of where we're grasping those funds from. It's a generalized knowledge. That's not controlling operational, any kind of means of how they do their job. That's saying you're coming before the trustees and asking to extend your budget over $600,000. And at the end of the day, that fund amount, when they release that APR rate and they release the water allocations per share in January, I want to say, we had no idea that this was going to come to a head of where it did come to a head in December. So that is a concern of mine. I just want to make sure I know if I'm approving an additional $600,000, I want to know where that money is coming from before I vote to approve it. That's all. I'm not saying I won't approve it next time, but I want to understand where those funds are coming from. That's a responsibility and an understanding. So that's the only reason why I will not be making that motion. We can say that they can fund the $2 million. That's fine. That's an allocated budgeted amount already, but I would like to know where those additional funds are coming from. And it was not brought to us this time.
Well, I have a quick question for you about that. Do you think it would be more appropriate to hold the staff accountable for delivering on that instead of holding our water provider hostage? Because ultimately, not paying our bill to North Pooter puts us in a bad position with our water provider. I think that we can go about holding our town administrator accountable for providing that information to us in a better and a different way without holding our water bill hostage. Like, we expect our citizens to be responsible about paying their water bill. We should be responsible about that. And if Patti is our checkbook in essence, or our accountant that advises us on how to manage our finances at home, let's hold our staff accountable here and not hold the bill hostage. The bill has to be paid no matter what. So let's give Patti a timeline that's reasonable, not a week. It sounds like we have some GL cleanup to happen.
We do. So may I interject? We did not have that information pulled together until late last week. We ended up going in and having to double check the budget amendments that had been done. When you remember when Vic was here, there were budget amendments done. So we needed to go back and look at those budget amendments and make sure that everything tied together. We did not have that information in time for the packet. I did not, and I apologize, I did not understand that part of the rules of Robert's rules, that there had to be more information or new information for a reconsideration. So I accept that. That's on me. But and whatever you all decide, but we have information now. But I didn't want to present it at the last minute to the Board of Trustees since you didn't have a chance to review it. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Trustee Teets, anything?
So when is
thoughts
the
on
due date on this bill?
Megan is in contact with North Pooter. She'll have that information.
Evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Trustees, Megan Smith, Deputy Director of Public Works. I have been working with Tad Moen, General Manager of North Poudre Irrigation Company, on the weekly. So we met last week as well. This topic was not covered at that. It was related to ongoing conversations, negotiations with the company. They're working with us to be flexible to our needs and for this payment. So their terms are such at the moment that we're not accruing interest on this bill. It's just like any bill that we have, though. It's, technically was due 30 days from the corrected date that it was sent, which was December of last year. I did want to. Yes, that's all.
Thank you. Any further questions for staff? Trustee Teets?
No further questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Trustee Wiegand?
Okay, it sounds like we got 2 million, a little bit over that to pay for it right now. And I think the concern is just as far as getting the new information. If we can have that even by next week, we can get that final payment done at that point, correct?
But we have to
So-
do a motion for reconsideration to postpone it.
Okay,
Be a new resolution.
It
So-
can simply be brought back in a new resolution. I am saying that new information has not been presented to me on this resolution. Bob's rules doesn't have a hard fast, you cannot. But a motion to reconsider is not, I didn't like the outcome, so therefore there's a motion to reconsider.
Trustee Mason? Comments or questions for staff?
I would back up what the Mayor Pro Tem says on this. I mean, quite frankly, staff has agreed to bring us the requested information at the next meeting. So it seems to me either there's a question here of we don't trust the staff to bring back the requested information, or I mean, if the hangup is just that, well, we don't have the new information tonight, I'm not sure that I'm not following that really.
Well, I would hope that we provide the same grace to our water utility bill customers when they need have extenuating circumstances or are waiting for additional information from their employers in order to be able to address a situation or pay their bills.
And we do.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Garcia. Okay. This D.
D.
Thank you. Well, having no further business on special meeting agenda, do I hear a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and begin the work session for the evening?
So moved.
second,
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
yes.
trustee Mason,
Yes.
Teets,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
No.
Thank you. The motion carries.
We good to roll right into the work session? All right.